Game journalist hacks are always looking for something to complain about. Even when a game is highly anticipated, they will find something to nitpick so they can write articles and get hate clicks. But of course, their new target is Final Fantasy XVI because they're now attacking the fact that it is heavily inspired by medieval Europe and won't have diversity put into it for the sake of following gaming industry trends. I have a bunch of things to show off, but before we get into the topic at hand, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon for just $1 a month, or support the channel via YouTube memberships. All of the links are in the description, and of course, I do really appreciate all of the support. So of course, the normal offenders, Kotaku and PC Gamer, have both written articles, but let's start with the Kotaku one. It says Final Fantasy dev has a terrible answer for why the game is so white. 2 weeks ago, Square Enix released a new story trailer for Final Fantasy XVI. There's just one noticeable problem. There doesn't seem to be a single non-white character in it. So IGN asked the producer, Yoshida, about whether or not the game would feature any black people or other people of color. Unfortunately, his response made me go yikes in real life. Yoshida explained that the fantasy world of Valisthea was based on medieval Europe and they wanted to limit the world culturally and geographically. Valisthea was never going to be realistically as diverse as, say, a modern-day Earth or even Final Fantasy XIV, he said, as if he was being asked to incorporate every race on the entire planet. Ultimately, we felt that while incorporating ethnic diversity into Valisthea was important, an over-incorporation into this single corner of a much larger world could end up causing a violation of those narrative boundaries we originally set for ourselves. Now, of course, this journalist is just looking for something to be mad at, and this is what they've grasped to. They said, which begs the question, why did they enforce a whites-only boundary in the first place? After acknowledging that the real world is more diverse than this one, he continued, the story we're telling is fantasy, yes, but it is also rooted in reality. You can't say that your fictional world isn't bound to reality, Yoshida, and then use reality to explain why black people can't exist here. Of course, they're only focusing on black individuals, but creators should be able to take inspiration from cultures and not have to be inaccurate to them so they don't get canceled. It's okay to just tell a story using the types of people you're basing your story on. It's not racist, but of course these people want to paint it as that the people working on this game are ists because they didn't put black individuals in there just to be inclusive, and of course we know that's going to be their angle until this title launches. In most cases, putting characters of different races or cultures in different areas in the world have been called cultural appropriation, and the only time it hasn't been called that is when it's European culture. But if you wrote a fantasy based upon, say, Indian mythology or any type of African mythology, and you started putting people of different backgrounds and ethnicities, especially white people, in it, you'd be accused of cultural appropriation. No one complains when stories are made based on those cultures that there isn't diversity or inclusivity. Again, it always comes back down to European culture. Now, of course, when one website picks up a story like this, all of them are going to, and like clockwork, PC Gamer also put out an article like this. Final Fantasy XVI is the latest game to use the historical realism excuse to exclude black characters. In a new interview, the producer said that the sequel won't have many black characters or people of color because it takes place in a geographically isolated realm inspired by medieval Europe, and it wouldn't be realistic to have an ethnically diverse cast. Ultimately, at the end of the day, this is the creator's decision. This isn't your decision. This isn't my decision. This is the direction they wanted to go in. That should be it. That should be the end of the discussion, okay? It shouldn't be attacked. It shouldn't be debated. They decided to ultimately as it says, be inspired by medieval Europe, and this is the direction they went in. That doesn't mean they should be canceled over it, but of course, these hacks grasp at every little thing like this that they can. Okay, they probably were waiting for something with Final Fantasy XVI to attack, because this is a very highly anticipated title. Many people are excited for this, and of course, they wanted to attack it. They want to attack any large game that comes out. I mean, look at all the hit pieces that have released about something like Elden Ring. Oh no, it struggles with a women problem. It shows how sexist From Software is. I mean, these articles are just getting more and more ridiculous as time goes on. Now, of course, there's really only one reason why journalists would put hit pieces out this besides looking for hate clicks: the fact that they can get their audiences to rile behind them and attempt to cancel this game. Because if you go to social media, of course, like clockwork, the people that follow these websites are now saying this is terrible and we should cancel Final Fantasy XVI. I am so pumped for Final Fantasy. I think it's going to be a modern-day masterpiece for the series, but this answer in the middle about why they've gone out of their way to make everyone white in the game is just not the one. They didn't say, oh, we wouldn't allow any black characters or any kind of people of color in this game. They just said the whole creative team took inspiration from one specific time period and setting, and that was it. That's just what they went with. It's not like they said no black individuals allowed in this game. These people are trying to paint it as all of the creators behind this project are raging racists when they're not. Anyway, Final Fantasy XVI looks pretty cool. This isn't really about that, but just generally within the fantasy genre, we could be a little less committed to the idea that there should only be white people in medieval fantasy. If you want to create a medieval fantasy with all different types of ethnicities, go for it. No one is stopping you, but you shouldn't stop other creators from simply wanting to make things semi-historically accurate and just take inspiration from specific periods. It shouldn't be that big of a deal at this point. This whole situation reminds me of what happens with Tolkien time and time again. He took inspiration from specific time periods and went with it. Okay, just because new creators aren't going down a list and checking off diversity boxes doesn't mean that they're racist. And of course, even though there are a lot of people trashing the game at this point, there's also a lot of individuals supporting it, saying things like, well, since Kotaku is complaining about Final Fantasy XVI, I definitely have to support the game now. Look, Square Enix has definitely had some huge misses lately. Valkyrie Elysium was a shorter game. It was decent, though. A lot of people are still waiting on news for the next Dragon Quest. The idea of their new NFT-based game is ridiculous, but I and many other people really do have high hopes for Final Fantasy XVI, but as you can see, these journos are already trying to get it cancelled. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.